Today's postcard is from the Red Rose County, Lancashire. Our postcard is from the Museum of Lancashire. We're in Preston, and yet if you go to Lancaster, which of course where Lancashire presumably gets its name from, Lancaster, Lancashire, as in Chester and Cheshire, York and Yorkshire, there's this dispute as to who is really the county town. Can you tell us which?
It's quite simple, really. The town started off being Lancaster and has been moved to Preston.
So in other words, Lancaster is the historic county town.
And Preston is the current county town.
Right, got it. So no letters to me or to Stephen, please, if you disagree with that one. You've got some maps here. Maybe you can take us through these. Right.
Well, to begin with, as you can see, Lancashire began really with this little area here between the Mersey and the Ribble. By 1072, which is really in the middle of William the Conqueror's reign, we would be talking about the area between the Mersey and right up to the Lune. By the 1090s, Lancashire was also including parts of what are now the Lake District, parts of what are now Cumbria. So we've got a huge area, in fact, separated by Morecambe Bay. Lancashire almost on two sides of the sands.
Now, I can see up here you've got the early boroughs in Lancashire, and the earliest being Lancaster, Preston, where we are today, Liverpool and Wigan. But did those early boroughs actually elect anyone to Parliament, or was it later on that this became more of a thing for the people to actually elect their MPs?
Well, Lancashire was electing MPs to Parliament from a pretty early period. In fact, some towns even elected 2 MPs. Perhaps my favourite example of how chaotic it could be was Clitheroe in the 17th century. Tiny town, elected 2 MPs, 40 electors got 2 MPs to Parliament, and there are almost as many alehouses as there were electors.
Well, we're in Darwen Clink here. Darwen's in East Lancashire, and we really are in prison, aren't we?
We are. We're completely incarcerated in a cell which was actually in use from about 1860 right through to 1978. And so antiquated it was possible to move it straight from the police station into a museum.
It's incredible that it was still in use just a few years back. There's the door with a load of, well, what do we call it, graffiti, or do we just call it part of history now? It's got here, next to sex, I love my Suzuki, someone's carved in there. And you've got all kinds of, well, the inmates, I think, have left their mark on that door. Would this have been the bed?
It would indeed, although bed is perhaps rather an optimistic
would they have had a mattress, or would it have been just like this?
I think later on, certainly during the 1960s, 1970s, they would have had a bit of a mattress on top of this. But presumably in the middle of the 19th century, it'd be straight on these wooden boards.
I think this toilet, this loo, is absolutely incredible. We've got all the people who spent some time in Darwen Nick, and I really don't want to look down the pan. That isn't authentic, is it?
It's awfully realistic.
Good answer. We'll never know. Down the Po. Now, on the day I visited Preston's Museum of Lancashire, they were holding a special exhibition about Lancashire at war. World War II, that is. Now, Anderson shelters were named because of who?
Because of Dr. Anderson. And they were designed really to spread the population out across the landscape. If you got a direct hit on one of these, it might not help you very much, but the fact that you had a bit of cover and that people were spread in small groups around the town rather than in huge shelters certainly helped save quite a few lives.
A prefab, and there are still people living in prefabs, aren't they?
Yes, indeed. People still living in prefabs today. But not many people know that it's at least the second time that Britain had prefabs, because during the English Civil War they decided to erect temporary buildings for people to live in after places had been destroyed. And there were complaints in the 1660s that people had been living in these temporary buildings for 20 years and more. So history's repeated itself with the humble prefab.